everyone. Excited to be back. We have a very cool episode talking all about the hot topic of the time, Gen AI, with some Q questions and stuff like that. Clearly, from that intro, you know I don't know anything about Q, but as always, I'm trying to be the voice of people watching and ask all the good questions. I was thinking, like, could I start the intro with like loads of Q words? But then I will like
Well,
go.
you're curious right now.
Oh, yes. All right. Chat, come up with any puns that could be with Q. Like
Yep.
the hardest ask of the chat I've ever done. Can you come up with any silly puns?
I think that's
Anyways,
the only
all
one
right.
you can do. But so
Yeah,
if you can
that's
surprise
it.
me, chat, let me know.
I know. I'm just like, when it comes to things like using egg puns, that's really easy because it's like excellent. I don't know. There's all those things. But, anyways, I'm going off topic. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on this morning. Morning for us America's folks, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. And Vishal, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's nice and warm at least this time of the year. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. And so today we're going to be focusing on, like I said, some Q product information with these guys and looking at how you can use it to do your cost analysis. Some housekeeping bits before we start. As a reminder, you can always, if you're watching us live, make sure that you follow also on our YouTube channel. On Keys Database Optimization and hit the subscribe button there. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to give the video a like. We're always putting out more content on social media, so you can make sure that you follow along. We now do a lot of things like shorts and little clips, so don't forget to subscribe to the socials down the bottom. And a very important thing, so everyone knows Savannah from the show. She's actually been in London. She's visiting, which is exciting. And she brought me a very special present, which I wanted to share with you all, which is, as you all know, I love a Funko. She made one of me, guys. This is legit.
What?
This is
It's
awesome.
got it's got a little laptop. It's got a little dumbbell.
Is there
Mini Steph, big Steph.
how do you do that?
It's like at the museum or like the big shop in Seattle or just outside of Seattle, and you go and you have a computer and you put in what your like the
Right.
hair color and the outfit and all the accessories. And so yeah, that's it.
Oh my god. All right.
That's cool.
For chat, would you keep it in the box or would you take it out of the box? Because like
Oh no.
I'd wanna play with that. I want to
Yes.
display it, but it's in the
So
box. It has your name on it. So
people are like, wow, well, thank you, chat. Nice. I love it. That's what we want. Just me looking at my Funko Pops. But the main thing with Funkos is they have no seal. So you can just open the box, right? There's no tape. So technically they don't lose value by opening the box because there is no seal on the box.
There
So
you
you can
go.
take, that's why mine is
yeah.
the box is
Now you
all
can tell
still
I
there.
don't collect Funkos.
Yeah. I have the app, it tells me. Anyway, let's get into some Q chat. I'm going off to about Funkos. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you, Savannah. So let me get into it. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm an optimization advocate here at AWS, helping you with all your FinOps questions. And I have my lovely guest with me today. Matt, do you want to do your 1 minute origin story?
Sure. So I'm Matt Burke. I'm a principal technical account manager. I've been at Amazon for around 5 years. I live in New York. And part of why I come on Stuff Show is I help lead our CFM community within Amazon and help figure out like what's the best way that we can work backwards for our field community in terms of presenting CFM services, products, FinOps. And I also help support some of our largest financial services customers. So yeah, I started at a small consultancy prior to Amazon, and I've been here ever since. I just got my what we call yellow gold badge. Like we changed our
Wait,
badge colors at 5 years, so but
yeah,
it's
I was gonna
unclear
say,
which color
isn't
it is.
there actually a gold one, which is like far. I don't
We
know.
can
I
start
remember
rumors
Yeah.
today.
because I remember I think Jeff Barr came on and he was talking about he got his like silver, I think. I can't remember. It was a while
Yes,
ago
there is like some purple and silver and red out there for like
Yeah.
Amazon's at 30 years now, I think.
Wow.
So
I was like, if
crazy.
you haven't, if you don't, as a shout
If you've
out for a
never left.
podcast, yeah, no, there's a podcast called something like "Is It a Cult?" and there's an episode on Amazon. I would listen to it. It's some like I agree with some of the points, and not all of it, but the badge thing is very funny. Vishal, do you want to give your 1 minute origin story?
Yeah, thanks for that. So first of all, apologize. I have nothing going on in my background. I know Steph has a lot going on in her background, and so does Matt. So yeah, my name is Vishal, a senior TAM based out of Toronto, Canada. Been with Amazon 3 years running now, helping customers build and scale on AWS. I'm also an enterprise support lead, which means I lead a team of TAMs as well out in Eastern Canada. And most recently, I've been helping customers build applications in Gen AI. Essentially, Amazon Q and Bedrock, also part of a specialist group for machine learning within AWS. I'm really looking forward to this conversation that we have.
Amazing. And in the chat, Travis is saying, keep it in the box, it'll be worth millions. I don't know if that's we're doing it. And William has also kindly sent the link. So how to pop yourself.
Oh, this is very helpful for me for
Nice.
Christmas time
Yeah,
gifts
that's what
because I
everyone's
always
saying.
struggle.
Yeah. Just get Funko Pops made. Although I did get my dad one already, but I just got him Old Man Steve from Captain America from Endgame. That's what it's for. It's very silly. Okay, let's start. Okay, focusing now. We're talking about Q. So Matt, what's Q?
I mean, we can even take a step back on what is
Yeah,
Q, and we
yeah.
can just talk about for folks that are in the chat, for folks that are live, like we hear about Gen AI a lot, right? And it's gotten to the point where even if I call out that we speak talking about Gen AI a lot, like it's been 6 months since we've been saying that. So why does it help you as like folks that are FinOps practitioners or folks that are new to AWS or folks that are just kind of wrapping their arms around like cloud spend? And ultimately, like there's two ways to look at Gen AI in this space. There's the FinOps for Gen AI, and then there's FinOps in Gen AI or Gen
Mhm.
AI in FinOps. So what does that mean? Well, there's folks that are like you, like people in the chat that are probably FinOps practitioners that are trying to understand how to forecast, budget, and optimize their Gen AI spend that they're currently working through, like POCs or things that are moving to production, better understand how to work on that front. But then what we're going to talk about today is how you can use Gen AI to practice FinOps. Like, what are ways that we can use natural language to interact with our cost and usage data to better understand what we're doing in the cloud? And because I feel like ultimately when folks are new, they go and they use the services, they use AWS Cost Explorer. I'm sure folks out there like remember the first time they went to Cost Explorer and they're like, what do I do? There's all the knobs and buttons and
Yeah.
filters. And it maybe took you a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, whatever, right? To figure that out. And but generally when you went there, went there because you wanted to ask a question, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of where we're at is like, can we ask a question to get an answer quicker than just operating the knobs and buttons ourselves?
Yeah. And let me share. All right, chat. First question, first poll of the day. Just generally, we want to know, do you want Gen AI for FinOps or FinOps for Gen AI? Because today we're talking about, wait, which one is it?
We're
Yeah.
talking for Gen AI for FinOps.
So we're
Number
doing
one.
one. Yeah. We
Yeah.
want one. Okay, yeah, that's what we're talking about. I remember this was from FinOps X, and I was sitting there like, okay, I need to write this down because the wording is interesting. Okay, people are agreeing with us in the chat. They want this. This is good. This is what we want. Perfect. Alrighty then. Oh, someone is going for the wait. Tom's done both, so that's helpful. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so well, Vishal, do you want to cover then moving into a little bit of what Q actually does in what we're talking about?
Yeah, so I think so. Thank you for that preface, Matt. So uh, I think at a very high level, I see Q as a very intuitive way of getting the information that you need out of your data using natural language, right? I know today we are focusing on like cost and usage data on AWS, but it goes beyond that as well, right? So there are lot of data sets, right? If you look at your AWS account, like you have CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and VPC flow logs, stuff like that, right? So Q can come in handy. Just plug it in, and you can start asking natural language questions and get the insights that you need to make decisions out of your data.
Mhm.
So yeah, and we'll dive into some of it today. I think Matt has some awesome demo, and I believe I live up to that in my demo.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, and we'll see QN works today. I'm really looking forward to demonstrating that. Yeah.
So before we get into the demo side, I know that Matt, we're going to talk about two parts, right? So we're going to talk about how Q works with Cost Explorer, and then also how Q works with a solution that Vishal has. So we have more of a custom solution and more of an inbuilt in the house. But at a high level, you kind of mentioned it helps you figure out kind of getting started. Is that who this audience is aimed at with the Q with Cost Explorer to like get people started, or is it to also kind of ask in-depth questions?
So I think, and we'll dive into it in the demo, like the queue for Cost Explorer integration is in preview. So there's some things it does really well, and there's some things that our FinOps practitioners out there that you might want to have a more in-depth question that it can't answer yet. And that is why we're saying it's in preview. But I think it's in both like areas where it's like you could just be doing this stuff for the first time and just know what question you want to ask and then have it get answered, or you could just be lazy like me sometimes. Like sometimes it's quicker just to ask the question than it is to operate, and we'll show the
Yeah.
difference here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did it the other day when I was looking to, I think I was trying to compare how much two instance types cost. And previously, I would have logged onto the EC2 pricing page and I would have gone and filtered by like R whatever's, written it down, gone to the next one, written it down, compared, done some calculations percentage wise. And so I was like, oh, just ask little Q over here. I know it's not exactly Cost Explorer, but like a Q. And it did give me an answer. Then I did go and check it because I was just like, do I trust Q? Yeah. But it did work. And it was like, oh, wow, that would have saved me so much time. So it was very handy. But yeah, let's get into the demo. So just to recap, Matt, what are you going to show in the demo before we jump into it?
Yeah, so I'm going to share talking with Q on my cost in this account that I have, and then we're gonna go through and verify like what the same thing I would have had to do in Cost Explorer to get to that same outcome. So we'll talk a little bit as we're going through it in terms of what I can ask and what might not work, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. All right, let's bring up your screen.
So the number one ask that I get for folks that even know that this is a thing, they go, okay, how do I even enable it? So most of you, if you go into your AWS console today, you're going to have the little queue icon. I'm going to just go to a new conversation here, and it gives you some examples of what you can ask Q. So I'm not even, this could pop up can be from anywhere, right? Like I could be checking out, cloud formation and
Mhm.
it's in the console. It's anywhere that I want to be, right? So if I'm just curious what my costs are for last month, I can just ask Q what that is. So if I say, "Hey, what were my AWS costs in May?" This is the functionality that we've launched in preview. So
Mhm.
if folks are watching this in the future, these things might change. So documentation is always going to help in terms of like what's the latest and greatest. But right now, today in July 2024, um, I get this answer from Q, which is your AWS costs in May were $2,395. But it also tells you, okay, if you knew nothing about Cost Explorer, what the same parameters you would need to use to get to that same outcome. And then it gives you the heads up, hey, this is in preview. And if you want to verify if this looks good, give us some feedback. So you can give a little thumbs up or thumbs down to let us know, hey, is this working for you? Is this the right answer? So that's the very, very high level of what it can do today. I'll stop there and
Awesome.
see if there's any questions in the chat or anything.
No, no, the so advice as well for everyone, please do the like and dislike if that's going to be providing good feedback. But the fact that it gives you the parameters that what you can put in Cost Explorer is so helpful. And the last thing I was going to say is that I've never thought about how people watch this in the future, and they just see what must be very funny is my background changing dramatically from different episode to different episode if you look at the past. So hello to the future. I wonder what my background's like then. Jesus, how many more Funko Pops have I achieved? Okay, so Matt, continue. Is it what would you do you want to validate to see if this is correct?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a pretty simple one. So let's do something that's like a little bit more in depth. So let's say,
Yeah.
what is my S3 cost? S3, and I don't know, let's throw out like EC2 cost for April and May. So it's going to understand, yeah, I want S3 as a service. Yes, I want EC2. And I want these two specific months. So now it's doing a bit of the calculation for me.
And people in the chat, what should we ask you? Feel free to submit a question that we can try and then test out. Would be great in the chat.
And so you can see it breaks it down and says, hey, you were asking about S3. That was only $20, but then I spent a bunch of money on my EC2. So I have EC2 costs, and it even has this shout out to say, hey, I also included some EC2 other in there as well. And so if I wanted to then verify it, I can check, okay, here's what the date range it used. Here it was monthly, it was unblended cost, and it grouped by service. And obviously it excluded if I had any credits or somebody issued a refund. So
Mm.
you can then go into your Cost Explorer and say, okay, I want to kind of do the same thing, April to May, and apply. I want to filter the services. So I have S3. And let me add EC2.
And EC2 other, yeah.
And then we have this again. And even at a glance, I don't know what the totals are. I have to scroll up to this total cost here or come
And
down
then
to
it
the
gives to
bottom.
remove credit and refund as well, right?
Yes, I don't have any credit and refunds in my account.
Oh, so this
So
is
it won't
okay. So
even
you don't have to.
show up as a way to
Yeah.
remove it. But I can verify, hey, this
Yeah.
is 5,024.29. That's correct. So I saved a bunch of clicks here. And also just like even if I know what I want, even if you guys are Cost Explorer experts, I still got to go through and type in and select, and then I click the wrong thing. So this
Yeah.
is helpful really quickly.
So does yours have tax in it? I don't know if our accounts do have tax in it.
Mine does not have tax in it,
Okay.
but
That's what
it
I wanted
yeah.
to take it out. It's another thing I was thinking. But we can't really test that today. But that's interesting. But we have got some suggestions of things to ask you if you want
Oh,
to keep
great.
go through those. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
let's do it.
Okay. Here's one. What is my most expensive EC2 instance type and its current generation? I feel like that's
So
try.
we'll try it, and I'll tell you what'll happen
I
as
thought
we're
this was an
waiting for
easy one
Q.
and I carried on reading. Tom's giving us a hard time.
I'll do it specifically for like the month of May. Let's see what
Okay.
happens here. I'm not confident on this one, and I'll tell you why once it answers.
Is it going to
Oh, there you
There
go.
you
Oh,
go.
See? So we got R6i extra large is the highest cost, and I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. Thank you
is
for
that
that,
right?
Q. So let's go check. So we'll go into May, and we'll go by. I'll clear this service. We'll go by instance type. And there we go, R6i large.
Yeah. We thought we were testing
So
it. We were doing a hard one, but it's not.
yeah, no, it had that one in spades.
Okay, this is a simple one. What are my top 5 cost services? But
Yeah.
let's see.
Cost last month. Again, I
Yeah,
want
because
to
you
do
did
it
say
like
May.
finalized bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do something
So,
where it has to understand that last month is June.
yeah. Let's see. Hopefully it's just minor. It's coming. It's interesting. Oh, last
Yep.
month. Does that look right?
This looks right. Let's go check it out. So we've got monthly. Last month would be June. Apply. And then I want to go by service. And then we have
Ah,
EC2 other, CloudTrail, billing conductor, EPC. Let's verify. Yep, that looks good
perfect.
to me. So
I love
Amazing.
that EC2 is not your main spend. Wait, weren't you spending 1,000? What happened? Oh, last month you must have. That was May. We were looking at before. My bad.
oh yeah. Just don't ask me why I have all this spend in this account stuff.
Don't look at mine. Mine is the demo account, so I'm allowed to
Yeah.
spend. So there was. I'll do one more in a second, but very sweet. I just want to. Chat. If you're joining us, we are talking all about Q to do analytics on your cost. But there is a lovely exchange, which is how much am I spending on data transfer is the question. But schizophrenic web developer has probably come in a bit later and just been like, oh, it's this per gigabyte. Only outbound, but they've answered the question. But we're asking Q to give us exact on the spend on Matt's account. But thank you, schizophrenic web developer, for answering the base question. Don't forget in your recommendation of how much it costs, region dependent. But yeah, how much are we spending on data transfer?
Let's see. So this is where
Ah,
we're getting the standard queue response here. And so this is a
right.
good segue because I think we'll have a few minutes left and we'll move on to Vishal. So this is
Yeah.
a good segue to talk about what it can and cannot do here. So I'm going to go quick to
Ah,
the documentation, which says this is what's supported. So we talked about service, we talked about charge type. So we can, for example, talk about tax if I had tax
mhm,
in the account. Linked account. So if I wanted to go by accounts, region, instance type, instance family, purchase type. So whether stuff is on demand or you're using savings plans or RISE or spot platform, and then
mhm,
tenancy and availability zone. So most like the things that you would want, but then if for folks that are like super advanced or really experienced, you probably dive deeper into things like usage type. You probably dive deeper to ask questions about what's the database engines that I'm running or what's the
mhm.
operating system that I'm running, whether that's, Red Hat Enterprise Linux or something else. Um, and that is not what is not supported at this moment in time today while we're in preview. But for most of these, like even if I was to ask, like, what is my spend by availability zone
Mhm.
last month, which is not something that I normally ask, but can be helpful if you're trying to
No.
figure out your resiliency. This should be able to answer.
Yeah. The I guess the next thing is going to be along. Oh, okay. Is it replied?
So it did
What?
reply. It gave me a total. It kind of gave me some raw output from
I think it
the Cost
created
Explorer
a
API.
table of
Yeah.
Gave it
some
a little
sort.
table. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah. Oh, is that use the API? Did you say? Oh, it's the
Yeah.
other version.
So to give folks a little bit under the hood, like this is all using Cost Explorer API.
Mhm.
So anything that you could do on the API, eventually it will support, which is why we're calling out what is here and what is there. So that also helps folks understand, like, okay, how am I getting access to ask these questions, right? So you, as a user, need to have access to Q, obviously, and you need to have access to your Cost Explorer data. So if you can get to your Cost Explorer page, that should be enough to get you there. So it's not the kind of thing where like, oh, I can give folks access to ask questions on Cube, but not give them access to Cost Explorer. That's
Yeah.
we want to make sure that this is secure and you have the right permissions. So you can see on the documentation the exact policy statement that would give you the access if you just don't have like full admin rights like I have on my own lab account.
Yeah, to stop giving out admin rights, God. No, it's good to highlight that. So this is something that you have to have permissions on your user to be able to see it, right? Okay,
Mhm.
so if everyone's jumping onto their account, they're thinking, where is it? Why don't I have Q? Make sure you go and request that. And I'll put all the links in the chat on YouTube. So make sure that you go and check all the ones below, like we always do. Okay, anything? Oh, we've had a nice chat message. Hi everyone, I'm new to AWS. Welcome to the channel.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So, anything else you want to showcase on Cost Explorer before we move to Vishal?
I think at this point, I leave it up to the chat. If there's any other queries that you'd like to see, me ask
I think
you, we can kick the
we've
tires for another minute or
covered.
two. But otherwise, I'll
Yeah.
give it back to Vishal.
Yeah. What I'll do is let's do out of curiosity, who has actually done this who's used Q before, either with Cost Explorer or just on its own? One for yes, two for no in the chat. Pop your comments in because I want to see how many people are actually using it. But okay, so some people know. So as a good kind of primer, go and try it out. See if how you can use it. See how it speeds up some of your work. There are so many things with these AI concepts that I think people I'm missing. Even I had a good chat with Alex the other day about what she was using AI to do and these simple little tweaks and changes to improve. But Cloud Strife has already said, oh, where's my mouse gone? In the chat, he'll already check it out, which is great. Okay, so Vishal,
Awesome.
yeah, over to you. Tell us what amazing thing that you have made.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt and Steph. So before I sort of start sharing, I just want to maybe give a story of like why
Yeah.
I'm doing this, right? I think since more than 6 months now, been talking to a lot of customers, right, and a lot of teams, and I haven't come across a team who doesn't have Gen AI on their mind, who are not thinking about generative AI, right?
Mm.
And it is true for the FinOps teams as well, right? I have had conversations with like VPs of FinOps at different customers who want to have an intuitive way to query the data that they want to see, right? So hey, give me something that I want. I want to use natural language to get insights to how am I trending in terms of cost and spend on AWS. And Q was announced in reInvent last year, and this has been like one of the top most asked, essentially querying structured data using natural language, right? So we started like thinking, and it doesn't really scale when if folks on the call know what RAG is, right? If you index the data behind any large language model, doesn't really scale well if it is structured data, right? And there are limitations. So the way we sort of overcome this limitation, I say we because I work with another TAM. So shout out to Shrini who couldn't be on the call with me today. So we worked on a solution. We completely decoupled the data from Q, right? We wanted to use purely Q purely as a mechanism to create SQL queries that we can run against our data sets. In this
Oh.
case, it's particularly Kerr data, which is sitting in S3, fronted by Athena. So I'll quickly go over the architecture at a very high level. I don't want to deep dive into that, and then we will see what the demo looks like. With that, let me share my screen and we'll dive right into it.
Sure, let me pull that up. Oh yeah, if you share a screen, and I'll post in the chat the link to the GitHub repo while
Yeah,
you're bringing up the demo. 2 minutes. We've also already had a good question about what to ask this model, so we will bring that back up when you get to audience questions.
great. So I think Steph, you may have already shared this. So this is the solution I sort of published last month. Was it last month? Yeah, that's right. It's last month. So it essentially talks about how we sort of use Amazon Q to query Kerr data that is sitting in Athena, right? So before I go into this, I want to quickly talk about few prerequisites. So I think Matt
Mhm.
probably covers some of it. You need to have AWS Identity Center. It's a prerequisite to use any version of Q, whether it is Q Business or Q Developer. So I already have Identity Center, and if you look at the users, you might see, yeah, that's me. Yeah, so I already have users set up here. So you can create your own users. You can also bring in users from your identity provider using a
Mhm.
SCIM. So if you're using Okta or any other IDP, it can integrate and you can bring in your users here, right? That's the first step. Second step is you need to have a Q business application, right? What Matt essentially showed was queue in the console, right? But if you want to have custom solutions, I have to reload. Give me 1 second.
Classic getting found out.
Yeah, it always happens, right? Uh, so I have created a queue application in my AWS account. So if I go to my app real quick,
Vishal, do you want to zoom in just like one more on this? I think the other
yes,
one was zoomed for
yeah, let me do that. How does that look now?
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So I already have this queue application that I have created. Very simple. I'm not using any connectors. So we have like 40 plus connectors that you can use within
Mhm.
queue that are like supported out of the box. So, and if you see here, I have given the same user access to this application, right? So
Okay.
it needs to have access to the queue application that we will be using. So this is authentication, and that part comes as part of the authorization that this user is authorized to access queue, right? So prerequisites, another one is, I think everyone knows cur data. So if you have cur data in your account, you can use that. If you want to try it out. So I have added steps here. So there is a lab, a FinOps lab that has been published. I'm using the same sample data as part of this demo, so you can use that as well. And
Cool.
then there are steps to generate certificate, like because you want to do SSL, right? Few prerequisites, really quick. I won't dive into the authorization flow. It's pretty standard. But what really happens here, we do a API call to Amazon Q business here. So Amazon Q does have APIs, public APIs that we can use to essentially write code and access the LLMs, right, directly. And then you can steer these models towards what you want to do. In this case, what we want to do is query our cost and usage data. So we look at the prompts that we have built and see how they help in sort of steering this towards accuracy, because it's really important, right? And once we get the response back, we just go ahead and start querying Athena. Uh, just want to dive a little bit deep on that aspect. How it actually works is, how does Q know what my cur data looks like? Because if you remember, I spoke about, we are not putting any data behind Amazon Q. We're not indexing any data. So it's really important for a Q to understand the schema and some metadata information about the data itself in order to create those accurate queries. And how we do that is using this, right? So let me quickly show you what it looks like. I think most of us are already aware of the cur schema,
Mhm.
what it looks like. And I think, let me quickly show that, pulling it up. And if I go to
So hopefully by
schemas,
now a lot of the audience will know what the curse kind of looks like. So
yeah. So yeah, I have the sample schema here. Yours might look a bit different because I have a bunch of savings plans and reservations as well. So yours might look different. So use your own schema here if you are planning to use this code. And another thing that I want to show is this, the service mappings, right? If you know, our service codes in AWS, they're very peculiar, right? Uh, a non-technical users might come in and they want to say, hey, what is my cost on compute, right? So we
Mhm.
should be able to translate that natural language text to something that the data understands, which is
Ah,
Amazon EC2, right? So
okay.
this is the service codes that cur data understands, right? So how do we translate that on the fly, is using this, right? So when we are making the query, the schema is the cur schema that I showed, and the data dictionary is essentially the service mappings, right? And you can
Mhm.
have this for different columns. I have it for just the service codes for now, but it works for different columns. So you can have this for, let's say, usage types and whatnot, right? Um,
Ah.
and similarly, I think I have around 50 plus services that are in my sample data set. And we're going to start with a demo real quick now.
So
And
before you start the demo, I have a couple of questions
yes,
in
please.
the chat that I'll pull up. So uh, can you interact programmatic? I can't speak. Can you interact programmatically with Amazon Q and use it like an FAQ on our websites?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can. So if you have your website and you can index your website. So we have a web crawler which is supported out of the box with Amazon Q. And there is an API, it's called Chat Sync API, essentially what I'm using in this particular solution. Once your website is indexed with a web crawler, so that means the data is available to Q. You can use the same API. Chat Sync, the documentation is out there if you're using Boto 3 or Java, I think is also supported. JavaScript is supported.
Mhm.
And you can programmatically access that. Yeah, you can.
Perfect. And then we've also got a question, which is the service using Athena behind it, which is, I think, your solution?
Yes, it is, right? So if you see, I have like added RDS S3. So any data store will be supported here.
Yeah.
Um, but for this particular use case, yes, I'm using Athena. But if you say it's completely decoupled here, right? So once you get the SQL query back, and we'll shortly see how it works, right? Once you get the SQL query back, we send the same SQL query to the Athena. So this
Mhm.
implementation here, like steps 4 and 5 can be anything, right? So based on the data store that you are using, you can implement this client, right, for your data
Mhm.
store. And I'm using Athena for this. Yeah. So short answer is that was a very long answer for a short question.
No worries. Okay, cool. Right, let's see it in action.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, once you have everything deployed, I didn't go over the deployment steps, but it's all listed here. So if I quickly go back, uh, just wanted to show you guys what it looks like. Right. So we have a CloudFormation template. Once you clone the project, deploy this CloudFormation template, it's all automated. There are a few parameters that it would ask you. So
Mhm.
Athena database, your S3 location, auth name is essentially for this Cognito, right? Because we are using Cognito for this. You can bring in your own IDP, as I said, as well. So Okta will also be supported. Um, and then the certificate ARN, because we're using an SSL certificate, you might already have one. If not, I've added the steps to create one. Uh, Public subnet, the application ID, the application that I showed you for Q. Uh, so I'm just zipping this code, and it's not a great way of doing this, but this is what I'm doing this. The code, location, and the VPC ID, right, where this app will be running. So it's essentially running on an EC2 instance, right?
Okay.
Fronted by a load balancer, right? And we will be accessing this as from the front end. This is what the front end looks like. And let me zoom this in as well before Steps calls me out on this.
It's
Okay.
like I can't see. I asked somebody guests to zoom in, but I know people watch this on their phone sometimes, so I want to make sure people can see.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so this is when everything is said and done, right? You deploy the solution, this is what it would look like, right? And then in the first instance, when you press on this button, connect with Cognito, you would have to sign up
Mhm.
initially if you're a new user. If you already have users in Cognito, don't have to sign up. You can use the same credentials. But first instance, you'll have to sign up. I'm not going to do that. I'm already signed in. Not signed in. I've already signed up, and I'm gonna just log in now to this. Right. So, and what it also does is it sort of introduces that security aspect as well to your solutions, right? Because if you have authentication authorization introduced within this, so it really helps with security as well, right? We don't
Mhm.
want users who are essentially not authorized to access your cost and usage data to do that, right? So it's all taken care of. So that being said, let's start with few simple questions. Give me 1 second here, and I'm just gonna, yeah.
So we got what are my top 5 services by spend? So basically, same as what we did for
Yeah,
Matt's one. So
yeah.
but on a
I'm
different,
gonna
it's a different account, so it'll be different numbers.
yeah, I'm gonna start simple, and then we'll sort of dive into this, and I'll explain how this query gets generated, right? So it was a like very simple query. What were my top 5 services by spend last year, right?
Mhm.
Um, so last year, right? The way any large language model works is they don't have any relevance to the dates, right? Because for any large language model, the time stopped till the
Mhm.
time like when they were trained on. Let's say for Q, the training data is till April 2023. If you
Mhm.
go into your console and ask, hey, what is today's date? You won't get the right response, right? Because they are only aware of the data that's in their training data. So how we
Right.
overcame this is by introducing, okay, yeah, by introducing this in the prompt, right? For
Mhm.
your reference, current date is July. It says July 24th because I didn't clear the cache. It was yesterday. But yeah, so if you give the current date, right, within the prompt itself, it knows that it has to work backwards from that date, right? So we
Ah,
always get queries like, hey, what was my spend last quarter? How does it know what was last quarter? So you have to give that information, right? To I mentioned it before, right? We have to steer it towards accuracy, and that's how we do it, right? In terms of
right.
like dates and stuff, right? So if give the current date, it's all dynamic. So that's how it knows, right? Like this is 2024, and if I am saying last year would be 2023 right here, right? And top five services, so it knows that by services I mean product service code,
From the
because
mapping, right.
yes, that this is the column that we intend to use for this. And for the cost, right? This is the column for the cost in the curve data,
Mhm.
line item, unblended cost, right? So Matt was adding those filters for unblended, right? So essentially, this is how it gets translated to in the curve data, right?
Mm.
Um, and total spend, essentially this, we just sort of uh, this and since we said top five, right? So it's going to group by the spend and give us the top five by like in a descending order, right? It does a really good job of translating that simple natural language query into this particular SQL query. And once that happens, right, as a next step, we're just going to run this against Athena, and we get this result back. And not only that, we get
Ah.
some nice little description as well, because we want to do some trend analysis on this data, what it actually means, right? So first thing, it will just give you the numbers, and then some trends, right? Analyzing the trend, it appears that we're heavily invested in cloud infrastructure, and this is again coming from Amazon Q, right? So what we do is, once I get this data back, we use the same data to ask Q some more questions, right, on top of this data, right? And it does a good job on answering data, in answering questions about the curve data, essentially because it has been trained with around 17 years of Amazon AWS data specifically, right? So it knows a lot about AWS, and it does a really good job in summarizing and identifying a few trends here and there about the data sets that you have. I'll take a pause. Are there any questions on
Uh,
this?
I just think it's great that you're passing it back and getting the descriptions through. And it kind of, if suggestions like, if you are new to writing queries, this is kind of a great way to see how they're constructed. Any questions or any prompts anybody wants to ask in the chat? No. One question we did have, which is it possible to get costs related to specific IDs of resources?
Yeah. So let's dive into this. So I think we spoke about top five services. Let's
Mhm.
dive into, let's pick Amazon EC2, right? So let's say what was my EC2 spend for each usage type. Let's say how it does this. It's running. All right. So
Okay.
I asked for usage type, so it knows that, hey,
Mhm.
I need to use this particular column now, line item usage
Mhm.
type, right? Because it is smart. So Q is smart. It knows the right parameters, right columns to choose when asked questions. And a lot of it because of like all this prompt engineering that has gone into it. And I'll quickly
Mhm.
go over the prompt as well as part of the code base that's out there on GitHub. So what it does is, it will give you all the uses, right? Whether it is instances, NAT gateways, uh, EBS volumes, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, EBS volumes. It's all out there, right? Now, if you want to dive deeper into, let's say, the usage types as well, right? So what we can do is I'm gonna just copy the same query maybe and add a bit more to the same one. Yeah,
And we have a couple of queries where people would like you to try in the chat as well. Just as
let's do it.
no, you can keep going because we want to also. I want to focus on the resource ID aspect to see if that's
Great.
possible
Okay.
or not.
Usage type. I'm gonna go with EBS volume for not for each for usage type EBS volume, right? And I'll talk about this thumbs up, thumbs down as well, and why this is relevant.
Mhm.
I didn't add the date, so let me.
Get confused.
Yeah, because it doesn't have data for this year. It has data from last year, so it started
Ah,
responding for. So I have to add the date. EBS volume last year.
And that's
That's
just
it.
because you're using the sample data, right?
Yeah, because
yeah.
I'm using the sample data. Yeah, it doesn't have data from this year.
Does
So
does adding the question mark matter?
yeah,
I find this on chat. I'm like, do you have to actually put a question mark
uh,
at
uh,
the end?
oh, I'm missing something here. Let's see.
Oh, classic error on the
My vote is you don't. That's my vote. I
yeah.
don't know if that's
That's
the true
that's
statement
what
or
I've
not.
yeah, because you already know you're answering a question. I'm sure that you don't actually need to put a question mark in. We're just having a conversation back and forth.
Okay, so something is up with this thing. Let's try maybe looking at S3 resources. Yeah. What
Yeah, someone asked to ask the top 5 buckets that are costing money.
my top 5 resource IDs for S3 by spend.
Okay, so it's getting resource ID. Cool.
So it will give you
Ah.
the so resource ID essentially are the bucket names, right, for S3. So if you see how it sort of translated that particular natural language query to this SQL query as
Mhm.
uh, top 5 resource IDs, right? So top 5 again, it will do sorry, a group by the resource ID and
Mhm.
limited by 5, right? And S3 again gets translated to the service codes that
Mhm.
the Ker data understand, which is Amazon S3, right? And it will give
Yeah.
you the top spend as well, along with the buckets, like which is incurring that spend, right? And once you have this data, you can like identify the owners and start working towards optimizing the cost, right? So it will
Mhm.
give you information up to the resource level as well. You can
Yeah.
dive into the resources.
We also had another one, which was: is it possible to answer queries on savings plans allocated to linked accounts?
It's a very good question. I haven't tried it, but the
Let's
way
try
I
it.
yeah,
We've only
let's
got a
try
couple
it.
more minutes left,
Yeah, let's
so
try it. Yeah. What was
and then we'll go
my
into a bit of a summary.
savings plan? What do you wanna ask, Steph?
Um, uh, it's going to
Say
be where did it go?
allocation,
Yeah, where
usage.
Let's
yeah,
say
what are my savings plans
utilization maybe.
allocated? Or it's more like you want to connect it to linked accounts. So, or maybe some. Could you ask what linked accounts have utilized, or how much of my savings plans have my linked accounts utilized?
Let's say yeah. What
Asking the
link
questions becomes quite an art
accounts
form to get
are
it.
utilizing?
This is normally when I just say, have you looked at net amortized and cost explorer or not?
Yeah, or just use query like. But this is it's coming to the future.
Let's say
I know.
So it's
that's
querying
Okay,
the
so
savings plans
it's
themselves.
pulling up the savings plans ARN. Maybe let's try to reframe the query and see if we can get
yeah.
the account IDs, maybe linked account IDs, because sometimes adding
Oh,
as
by the
little as
way,
like this work. Yeah,
Rainer Cloud said that the usage type EBS will be the problem. So maybe that was the issue on the other one.
probably. Yeah.
Might have been some of it.
Yeah, it's not listing the accounts, but it can pull the savings plan ARNs, and then they do have the linked account. So I've this is like linked 768. It's
Yeah.
like sample data, but this is where the account IDs will be. So yeah,
Okay. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's starting to being able to ask the question is becoming an art form as well. Also, one quick question on this solution itself: is it running on Kerr Legacy or Kerr 2.0?
I think it's running on the latest one.
Okay, that is one. That's
Yeah,
two. Perfect.
and
Um,
I think one more thing I want to talk about is this thumbs up, thumbs down buttons.
mm,
So something similar to what Matt was showing in the console. So that is something that the Q product team uses, the customer feedback. This is very customized for you, right? So when you like the query and so we don't like this query because it didn't give us the account IDs, right? You can do a thumbs down. So what it would do is it will record a feedback. Let me clear the chat history. It will record a feedback for now in text file for now in this not here, come on, app. And if you go to feedback, right, there is a file right within the solution itself. So the reason we did that is because we wanted to identify the good queries versus not so good queries, right? So we are marking the good queries as positive, not so good queries as negative, right? So the reason for that is you can use this as a reference point for your query validation. So when you
mhm.
productionize any workload, right, you can have a set of queries that you have identified are good, because at the end of the day, it is still LLMs, right? It's still
Yeah.
non-deterministic, right? So you have to be careful so as to uh, go into production without testing this properly, right? So test it out, mark the good ones, use that as a feedback mechanism, and iterate on top of it, right? Because we want to build
Mhm.
our own schema or our own data sets of good queries versus the bad ones, right? So that's what I
Perfect.
wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, brilliant. And any plans to support Focus 1.0?
Uh, I didn't get that, Steph. Can you come again?
Oh, any plans to support Focus version 1 as the data sets?
It's not on the roadmap, but definitely we can think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd have
Yeah.
to build a new uh mapping for the schema of that
Yes.
For
file.
the schema, exactly, and I think it is doable because we have proven out the architecture works. So I think any data set we should be able to onboard. Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. And I also wanted to highlight when we were chatting about the question marks, there was like, so just a lot of people joined the chat. So the question, do we need a question mark at the end of a question you add into AI? Some people are saying, I don't think it's needed as it's implied. Um, when we were doing it wrong, they said we forgot it and that was
Yeah.
why.
But
And they said, you need to include the question mark as we have to be nice to Gen AI for
I,
becoming when they become our
I
leaders.
think you have to be nice
It's
with
so
Q
true.
for sure. I've
Yeah.
seen that. If you ask Q nicely, please respond with this. It does a good job, and I'm talking from personal experience. So
I
try
say
to
thank you
be
to my
nice.
Alexa. So
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. All right. In the last 2 minutes before we finish up, just a question, maybe like Matt and then Vishal. When should people be using the one that you demoed? So, or what kind of job roles, or kind of in summary, who do you think the target audience of the two are? So, Matt, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for mine, it's basically anybody that's asking cost related questions. Like if you're already a cost explorer expert and you know your way around the tool, then maybe you have your saved views ready and you just click your view and you got it loaded and you're good to go. But I think for
Mhm.
most people, they want to skip to just getting an answer to their question. And this is where Q can help. And it's in preview now, so stay tuned for GA, hopefully soon, and we'll be adding more features and functionalities in over time. I do want to note very quickly, this Q, when it's fully GA, will be Q Developer. So there's two flavors of
Okay.
Q. This is Q Developer, and Vishal's is Q Business.
Yeah.
Great. Good to know. And if you have any feedback or questions about Q that you want to share, you can always email us at costoptimization at amazon.com. And Vishal, what about your one? Who's it aimed at?
I think the targeted user for this would be folks, the FinOps folks who want more intuitive solutions, right? Who don't really have access to, let's say, Cost Explorer, or I know we have a Kudos solution as well, right? That works on QuickSight. Who don't really have access to that as well. Who want something as simple as, hey, I want to ask a question in natural language and give me the responses. So that works. And for folks who wants to sort of dive deeper into the resource level information as well, that we see, for example, we saw that for S3. If you want to identify the resources, right, go more granular. I think this solution works perfect for that. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Let's bring on our summary from Secret Richard, who has, as always, summarized the episode into some funny bullet points that I will read without seeing beforehand. Just so that you can, and these are at the end of all of our episodes in the last couple of seasons, so if you ever want to see what we cover in an episode, you can check it out by on YouTube going to the end. So today, James Bond relies on Q, and now you can too. Ugh, that's clever. I didn't even think about James Bond. Gen AI for FinOps, often us Gen AI, let's say age-old question, or a 2-month-old question probably. You don't need to include the question mark, but it's nice if you do. So let's be polite to our Gen AI overlords and use feedback loops to help improve Q. Yes, and the same for all of our services. Remember, we're always looking out for your feedback when it comes to them. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. As always, we're back next week. We're actually doing some exciting episode with Graviton next week, so make sure to come back for that. And if you're still watching, stay on for Build on the Weekly, which is doing serverless learning. So stick around on
And keep
Twitch.
watching, because later on this afternoon, I will
Yeah.
also be live again on AWS
Yeah.
Tech Tales, 4 p.m.
Mm.
Eastern, 1 p.m.
Yay!
Pacific. So
Yay.
just stick around for the channel.
Just leave
We're
it
not
on.
going anywhere. I mean, we are, but AWS isn't. So
Yeah.
Exactly. Leave it on all day. Just have it on the background. Here's some fun chat. Join in. Awesome. All right. Thank you to you guys, and we will see you all next time. Bye.